Yo, what's up everybody? I wanted to do a video today about the processes of tuning Mercedes V8 and why you might want to. One of the reasons why you might want to tune a V8 is because there's going to be no AMG V8s in 2022 and likely 2023 models. So what that means is there's only going to be two V8s available. They're going to be for the S-Class only, so there's likely not even going to be any G-Wagons brought in. It's likely due to a shortage in chips, I would imagine. They haven't confirmed that, but I imagine the reason why is something to do with just-in-time manufacturing and a chip supply shortage, and likely their move to being an ICE plus the EV components. I would imagine there is some chip requirements there that are more advanced and also constrained. So the S560 or 580 or whatever it is will have a V8, and they will sell those next year. So you might want to buy an S580 and tune it if you really want a V8 instead of like a 43 AMG or 53, the inline six or the V6. All right, so another reason why you might want to tune V8 is because you have an AMG and you want even more performance, or you have a non-AMG like a M278, or one of the 4.0 V8s that's non-AMG. These engines are extremely detuned from the factory. So what I mean by that is when you look through the tables, there'll be like torque demand tables and driver demand tables and like maximum desired load, like how much load you can command. And all of these are way lower than they can be. So for example, you set like a torque limit for the engine, which is usually pretty low, usually like 590 pound-feet of torque, and then they command only about 60 to 80% of that torque on the stock vehicles. So you're leaving somewhere between 40 and 20%, or 20 and 40% of what your car could make on the table, just from the software side of things. So that's a pretty big a loss, even if it's just 20%, that's a pretty huge number. So that's one of the reasons why you might want to tune one, is because there's just so much performance left on the table. All right, so let's go through the process, right? And this is going to be kind of the same for the M278, the M157s, and the newer 4.0 twin turbos. There'll be extra steps here and there, and I'll point out the differences, but let's go through them. All right, so the first thing you're probably going to want to do is an ECU tune, and you can use a MyGenius or you can use an HP Tuners apparatus. Either one will probably be fine. The MyGenius will be more for like Eurocharged and whatever. Those will be like bench tunes. You'll be able to switch back and forth. Let me just grab them. They have like a cable like this. You hook it into your computer. It uploads the VIN. It uploads your current software, and someone sort of bench tunes it and then sends it back. Now you might be able to do like a dyno tune where they load it into one of these too. The tunes on these are going to be like encrypted, so you can't really go in and play with them. Alright, so that's what a MyGenius looks like. There's no scanning capability. It might be able to read diagnostic codes. I'm not 100% sure. It'll just go through and be like right, not, and it takes a little while. The HP Tuners, you won't be able to use MyGenius. Once you use HP Tuners, you can't go back to MyGenius. The initial read and write takes longer, and then after that, it's much shorter. So you can write your car in about a minute and 30 seconds. And the advantage to that would be like you can make little adjustments to your tune, whether it's driver demand or let's say you do some mods, you can make adjustments to your tune, which I find really, really helpful. All right, so then after you tune your ECU, like step 1A, so you can do this step first, you can do this step second, but step 1A would be a TCU tune, and that would be for all of them, right? A TCU tune, so it tunes the transmission to shift faster. I do have a couple videos on this. I went with Merendi, but there's a lot of people who use you know, someone McMuffin's tunes, or you know, but basically he has a tool, and a lot of the other companies use their own versions of it, or you know, that tool plus like their variants. Now for the newer cars, you're also going to need a CPC tune. I've been told there are some CPCs that will limit how much torque you put down, and it can kind of feel like fuel cutting. I haven't actually felt it, it's just what has been described to me. I'll try to do a video with this with Eurocharge. They mentioned that to me previously, so I'm going to reach back out to them, but basically the CPC would be another limit on some platforms. Not all the platforms, but on some platforms, CPC will limit your tune, you know, how much power you put down. Once they do a TCU tune, your TCU likely won't be able to reduce torque anymore, or at least in my application. So I had to make sure that on the ECU tune side, I was not commanding more than like 1,000 Newton meters or whatever, 800 Newton meters, something like that, because after that limit it would throw like kind of like an ESP fault at me, or like some sort of a traction fault, which was interesting. You might want to watch out for that. All right, so intakes and exhaust. After you do those two, or maybe even prior, you're going to want to upgrade your intakes and your exhaust. For the intakes, there's conical filters for the 4.0s, for the 157 and the 278s. There's Alpha, does like nice carbon boxes, which are beautiful. Black Boost does nice boxes, which, you know, bring in lots more air and are like conical, and they keep kind of like the stock tubes. But I think you can use the VRP tubes. I know that I might have like upset some people in my last video by saying, you know, I would wrap the VRP tubes in gold, but I would. The reason why is they probably flow better, but they might get heat soaked. So the gold heat wrap would probably bring those IATs down a lot. All right, so on the exhaust side of things, if you're racing your car, you can do downpipes. If you're not racing your car, if it's a street car, if it's older than like 5 years or so and 40,000 miles in America, maybe not California, definitely not California. You definitely check your local, you know, rules on this. But more than 6 years old or 40,000 miles, something like that, you can do high flow cats. And so you'd want to get 200 cell cats for street legal use, and you'd want to get metallic cats. Those are a little bit more robust. They can handle more heat. They flow better. I haven't like actually done the measurements, but everything I've read suggests that like they flow about 80% of just pure downpipes. And I'm not sure if that's 100 cell or 200 cell, but I'm pretty sure from my knowledge, from my recollection, the 200 cell high flow, like MagnaFlow, like cats, will flow about 80% of a tube the same size. It's just like a straight downpipe the same size. All right, so that'll give you another, I would guess, like 40 horsepower to on the exhaust side by going just to high flow cats. If you're doing downpipes, you might get like 60 wheel horsepower. On the intake side, you're looking at about 20 to 30, maybe a little more horsepower. You are going to have to change some of the tuning to take advantage of like a Black Boost, according to Jake. So if you have Black Boost and you're with like a Eurocharge or someone, you're going to want to tell them you have the Black Boost on there. Another option are the risers. I have a video on that, and they're like $200 to $400. UPD calls them like cold boost intake or something. And basically they're like little metal risers. They go around and you have like bigger screws, and then you put in kind of like oiled filters. I would go with K&N here. I've heard there are some stories about BMC filters like pulling through, and so you probably don't want that, and I would take a look at them often because you can suck a lot. You know, this isn't you know, this is positive like vacuum. You're actually pulling air into the engine with the turbos. All right, then finally what you're going to want to probably do are new turbos. New turbos are going to be a little bit harder on the M157 and the M278 because they're lower. You'll probably have to drop the engine or at least put it on some sort of like an engine mount while you move it a little bit. You might not have to take it all the way out, but you will have to drop it a little bit. And I mean, Philip has told me that you might be able to do the hybrid turbos without doing that on like a rear-wheel drive car, but everything I've ever seen has people move the engine a couple inches down and left and right to get everything in. And that's just probably the way it's going to be to be honest. On the 4.0 engines, the turbos are going to be a lot easier. So I mentioned this in the past in one of my videos. I'm trying to make the videos better. I look back and cringe a little bit, but there's some pretty good info on there. The turbos themselves are like engines. They're like two extra little engines. They actually take power from the exhaust and like, you know, push more power into, like they push more air and create more power in the engine. But they are going to be able to produce a lot more power. So like upgrading your turbos will produce a pretty big impact in terms of your ability to do kind of like roll racing. There's going to be quite a big increase. So basically the turbos can really cut down the difference between like an M157, M278, like between the AMG and non-AMG versions. New turbos are going to really cut down the performance difference quite a bit. And as far as I know, I think the 4.0s do have some differences in terms of like lubrication, like some are dry sump and some aren't. But the M157 and M278, the internals are pretty much all the same. The compression's a little bit different, so you'll probably have to tone down like you might not be able to push as much boost out, but realistically an M157 will produce about 1,000 horsepower crank, or like 850, 780, 790 to the wheels without internal upgrades, and that's the same as you would get with an M278. You know, after like 789 wheel horsepower, you're going to need to upgrade the internals on both those engines to be safe. And you'll also probably want to look at something called methanol injection. I have a video on this too, I believe. Methanol injection was developed by the Germans during World War II, also called Nazis, and they realized that with turbocharged engines, they were getting hot, and injecting water methanol mix could give them almost like 40 or 50% more horsepower on these turbocharged, you know, aviation engines. So if I recall, something like 1,400 to like 2,000 like horsepower, like 2,600 horsepower, 2,800 horsepower. So they would get quite a lot more horsepower with the methanol injection. They also can help clean the engines a little bit. These engines are direct injection only. They're not direct injection plus port. They're only direct injection. I might not be completely 100% on that. Like maybe there's something new that Mercedes came out with, but as far as I know, they're only direct injection. So the ports and valves can get a little bit dirty. Water methanol injection can help with that. The downside would be probably like hydro lock. You know, you want to make sure it's set up so that it just doesn't keep like injecting water. You know, so you want a fail safe with that, and you're going to want to tune it for the methanol. So like if it were me, this is just me, I would put the methanol water mix inside the windshield washer reservoir, because it's pretty much the same as the blue stuff you would buy at the store. That's usually methanol. And when I mean blue stuff, I mean windshield washer mix that's blue. And basically it'll tell you when you're low, you're going to want to fill up when you're low. And I would copy over basically the optimum spark tables to the base spark tables, and you know, just, you know, make sure you're not getting any knock retard. I try to get 0 knock retard, but honestly every engine I've tuned, has shown that there's some knock retard here and there in little weird areas, and you're going to want to take that out because it, you know, reduces usually by about 3% or 3 degrees, you know, that cylinder. And from the factory, without methanol, there are some places in the cells that are going to be a little hot, that are like tuned a little too hot, so you're going to get some knock retard just like naturally, just, you know, without any other mods. And you're going to actually want to reduce timing in some places to get better performance. And the reason being is you don't want the engine to pull timing. You want it to run and not knock retard. So those are some ideas on how to increase performance on a, you know, modern Mercedes V8. I gave you some of the reasons why you might want to do it. And if you're looking to tune your engine, I think we have 1 or 2 days left on a Merendi free tune giveaway. And I'll try to reach out to Jake about the CPC tune, maybe do a video on that. But you might want to contact you know, Merendi for a TCU tune. They're at like $700. It's pretty cheap. Jake with Eurocharge is another really great option. You know, they have warranties. I don't know if the transmission and CPC are warranted once you do that, but I do know that they're a little bit like that they're, I don't want to say conservative, but you're not going to fuck up your transmission by running something from Eurocharged, and I think that's pretty solid to know. And you know, sometimes online people are asking for, you know, a little bit more aggressive TCU tunes, especially for the 55 you know, platform. Alright guys, well, I'm gonna wrap this video up. Thanks for joining me. Until next time.